spent the
People
last
demand. They're
spent
just
the last
demanding it.
5 minutes. Yeah, they said that we spent the last 10 minutes talking, and we're like, shit, we should be recording.
This is the thing. Is just like if we were professionals, we'd have like pre-show set. No, because
Yeah.
we that would be wasted. We'd have the good conversation. You know where all the good conversations happen, Brian? In all of the offices and all the rooms where it's never recorded and put in public
Yeah,
meetings.
that's true.
Sometimes the good stuff will pop in the public meetings briefly, but most of the time that's all prepared. Everybody knows what people are going to say.
Yeah.
Everybody knows where everybody's at. It's in the rooms where people are honest, and that's the classic politician mess up, right? Got in trouble in the media because they were honest.
Yeah, it tends to be my problem. I definitely am a little too in your face, honest, and but I feel like I can be honest about me too. But we were just talking about the Israeli thing, and I think you had a pretty good take on it. So we were just
So
talking about how there's like really a rift within the Republican Party, and it's really like an isolationism versus a neocon, right? So it's really kind of
that's right.
that discussion of we shouldn't be intervening in these wars, and Donald Trump seemed to win with an isolationist, that we shouldn't be, getting involved in wars and stuff like that. But then as soon as he gets into office, he's actually out there solving wars. So I'm not sure which is which, but you had a thought on the Israel thing that I thought was interesting.
So yeah, so Tucker basically says is that you can't put America's interest first, or it's more challenging to put America's interest first if you're also doing what Israel wants you to do. And his perception is that Bibi Netanyahu comes to America and explains you need to start a war with Iran, and that's in the best interest of America. And a lot of folks here are saying no, we have a lot of problems here. And this is my whole problem with the entire debate. It makes the assumption we can only do one thing. We can only either intervene overseas, or we can either do policy, like, domestic policy, domestic versus foreign. You have to do both. If you aren't good at both, that is bad for your administration or bad for your political party or bad for your Congress. But like, you have to be able to do both. So that's the only thing that needs to be solved here, is figuring out how to do both of those things better. And usually it's you have a segment of lawmakers that care about foreign policy, and you have a segment that care about domestic, and then you break them up into their committees, and they're supposed to be working on those things, right? That's the whole idea of the committee system in your government. The point about Israel, and where I think Trump has done a really good job, is he recognizes that the value of Israel is the fact that they're on the ground. They have a competent military, a very competent military, a very competent FBI, CIA equivalent out there, and they know who the bad guys are and who the bad guys are not. Okay, and what they don't have as abundantly as America has is bombs, technology, and money. And so what Trump has discovered is typically boots on the ground in the Middle East doesn't work for us. Okay, it's a challenge. He was even going to withdraw from Afghanistan. Now he was going to do it differently than Biden did, right? But the whole idea is like we need to get the boots off the ground there. That's not working. It's creating a lot of hatred for America. Okay, same level of hatred, or maybe even more hatred than if we just drop bombs over there. Okay, so his determination is let's do the things that Israel struggles with. Let's give them the bombs. Let's give them the technical support. Let's give them the information that they need, and then let's give them the money, and then let's let them do all of the hard stuff, right? And they're all willing to do that because it's their country, and that's the perfect division of labor. That's like it's so much better for America if we can throw dollars at that problem instead of bodies, right? And that's always been my argument is without Israel, you have to throw bodies at the problem because that's where all the terrorism comes from. Like 99% of the terrorism in the world that affects America or will affect America comes from that region. So as long as Israel's willing to throw bodies at it, money is way better than actually having to deploy our military and significant assets, right? And so that's what Trump has figured out. And then occasionally we can drop a bomb, right? Or do some of that stuff, right? And I think that is the best division. And so to say that we're being controlled by Israel, it's like, no, the American interest is not another 9/11. Okay, that's the whole point of why we went over there originally, right? And you can talk through, and I think that's been endlessly debated, right? But like generally, the consensus of America is we don't want terrorism and we don't want boots on the ground in the Middle East. Solved, right? If you have Israel do that stuff for you.
Yeah. No, I think you're right with the with all of the stuff that happens as president. Like you have to engage. You can't just be the president of Norway cannot do it. You know, they can just disengage and not be part of anything and still be fine as a country. But the president of the United States doesn't have a choice. Like we have to get engaged in these, sadly. But I think you're right. I would rather see us get engaged with bombs and dollars and technology and all of the intelligence, all of the things that we can give our allies without giving them our soldiers, because the stuff in Iraq and everything was just a complete, utter disaster. And all that does is enrich all the defense contractors and all the people or the war contractors. Are we calling them war contractors now? Or are they defense contractors? I'm not really sure.
Oh, that's true. You changed the Department of War. I will say not to, and I don't want to discourage or disparage because all the people who served in all those conflicts did it for their country and they should be honored. I don't have anything. I think what they would tell you is we would have been more effective if the war was run by people who cared about war instead of people who cared about headlines. And that's always a balance and a
Yeah.
problem that you have conducting war when you have politicians being part of war. Ultimately it has to be controlled by politicians because you can't have you have to have a lay person at some point in charge of the military, right? It's Donald Trump, and then there's a little bit of a check with the Congress funding it and the Congress declaring true wars, right? All of that, I get all that, right? But I think most people of today, based on everything that's happened, would say we are generally okay throwing money at it. We don't want to throw bodies at it. And Israel's kind of your best option in that region. Now, everything Trump's doing with the Abraham Accords is also what you want, which is a lot of diplomacy. And he's done some of the most effective
Yeah.
diplomacy in the Middle East, which if somebody in 2015 told you that Donald Trump was going to be the most effective at bringing peace to the Middle East, no one would have believed you. But
This
there he is doing it.
Well, and yeah, Marco Rubio. I mean, you kind of listen to that guy, and I've had some good opportunities to kind of listen to him while I'm working on the ranch or doing whatever, working in the office, having it on the background. He really is a brilliant guy when it comes to, all of this sort of stuff and diplomacy and figuring out how to solve problems. And I think in Trump's a problem solver. I mean, that's just really who he is because he's a builder, right? And builders, they just solve problems, right? You have a problem with you're putting up a building and then you got to fix it. And so he just looks at everything that way. It's not, he has a philosophy, but it's always driven by what gets us to an end goal. He's a deal maker. So he's really born for national or for this international policy and, problem solving, deal making, ending wars. Like it fits his persona. But you're right. Nobody would have ever thought that in 2015. They would have thought, oh, you got to do the Dick Cheney model and just throw, we just need to go to war. And that's what keeps the world at bay. And I think you got to have somewhere not going to war, but also not just being an isolationist is probably where I sit, because being an isolationist means that somebody else is talking to them. That means China's talking to those countries. That means Russia's talking to those countries. That means India, our enemies, right? That are whether they're our enemies, philosophically, or there are our actual enemies, is kind of a different story. But yeah,
No, that's
it's
exactly
interesting.
right.
It's an interesting debate to have, and I'm glad that we're having the debate because you can't go Mark Levin and just say if you're not 100% pro-Israel, you're a Nazi. And you can't go scorched earth on people and just call them that. Like Israel is a friend of the United States of America, period. That is period, full stop, period, right? But,
Hmm.
oh, that was my Gavin Newsom take, full stop. Uh, and like, I look at them like Canada, it's like they're like Canada. If Canada was going to get attacked, by Greenland, we would be supporting Canada, but we'd rather not send troops up there. We'd rather just send them missiles to throw at Greenland. It makes more sense.
We just have to say we're going to send troops and they'd surrender anyway. We wouldn't have to actually send them
Yeah.
into Canada. My favorite clip, I can't remember who the comedian is that did it. It said that, why America's or why Canadians can afford to not spend very much on defense is because they have one of the greatest walls of all time, the United States of America.
Yeah.
So, and so yes, we do spend a lot on defense. We also are compensating for a lot of other countries and they benefit
Yep.
from that.
Mexico. I mean, Mexico. I mean, they screw us time and time and time again, but yet nobody ever attacks Mexico because they're next to us.
Right.
So it
Exactly.
does help who your neighbors are.
100%.
Yeah.
And
Hey,
we're
speaking
lucky
of
to,
wars, Reagan,
yeah.
we're not international experts, but this gas tax war is it's on. The governor finally signed the bill because it was an emergency. And hardly the newspapers would they would say it in a byline that the governor hasn't signed it yet, or they'd make an excuse why. She clearly didn't sign because she wants to give Bruce Starr and Ed Deal the least amount of time possible to get the 78,000 signatures. And then I thought, so all that you can go sign now, all those sort of things. I'm sure you've seen it on social media. But what I found really interesting is after all of this, the director decides to step down.
Well, here's the thing. Right after she signs the bill, she has the power to fire the director, and
Yeah,
that's new.
yeah.
And so I suspect that may have played a part in it. I don't know. I suspect. Um, a lot of people did think that needed to happen. He gets a more graceful exit probably than he deserves, unfortunately. I think that long term, the biggest problem they have a couple big problems. One is that the Transportation Commission does not share the viewpoint of Oregonians on transportation and how they want transportation to be funded. The commission strongly believes they want to do that they have to do tolling. They strongly believe that. They strongly believe that we need a lot more transit and a lot more TriMet and a lot more and most Oregonians do not share any of these opinions. Okay, there's this very
Boo.
small they represent a very small segment of people. And unfortunately, even while holding these positions, the way they convey them to Oregonians is not convincing them that it's good for them. It's telling them it's good for them. And we know better than you. And that's always going to go super poorly. And so, what I think the next change in leadership that needs to happen is some folks on the Transportation Commission who do not share or are not willing to share the viewpoint of Oregonians need to be removed. And you can see this. You can see Tina Kotek pausing tolling, and yet her transportation commissioners continue to say, yeah, but we're just going to toll everything because we
Yeah.
have to, because there's no other way to go for money. Like, get an understanding of the message, get an understanding of the space that we're in politically, and start being a little bit responsive to Oregonians, and things get a lot better a lot quickly. Your favorable unfavorable number, right, will change. People will have a better opinion, but as long as they're going to talk down to Oregonians, as long as they're going to tell them take a bus, take a bike, pay a toll, it's not going to be it's going to continue to be very dysfunctional. The transportation conversation we're having is an incredibly dysfunctional conversation. And until somebody says, hey, we need to solve it, and it needs to be solved with the opinion of Oregonians, not Republicans, not Democrats, but like the predominant opinion of Oregonians, it's not getting better.
Well, yes, I would agree. And I think Chris, the director, really has messed up a lot of stuff overseeing all of these projects. And they've gone, I mean, the Rose Quarter project, I mean, the Abernathy Bridge project, I mean, the Rose Quarter project, I was reading in this article on OPB about it, and it was like they spent $143 million at this point, and they haven't even put a shovel into the dirt on the Rose Quarter project. Like that's the one where they're supposed to be widening I-5 and that whole anybody's driven through Portland knows, right? It's a train wreck right in there. It was probably a cool engineering feat at the time they built it, which would have been in what 50, probably early 50s, I bet. Somewhere around there, they made the original Rose Quarter exchange. I don't know. But I mean, the fact that you spent $143 million on planning and engineering. How is that even possible?
We
Like,
have to
where's
make
the
it
corruption in there?
well, it's not it's part of it is we have to make it legal to build stuff. So in when we originally built the highway system, there weren't a lot of environmental hurdles to go over. There weren't a lot of different permits that you had to get. It was much simpler. And over time, we've added layers and layers and layers to build anything. And almost all of those layers have some sort of like good intention behind them, and also make it so that you have to spend $100 million before you can even start building a thing that is big. And sometimes we just have to build stuff that's big. I think that there is probably a different balance that you can have, which includes some of this, so you know the environmental impact when you're going in, and but a lot of those things are basically used as weapons to slow or kill projects now.
Yeah.
And until you decide to make it legal to build stuff, it's just going to be this expensive and more expensive, right? The cheapest bridge is the one you built yesterday.
True. But I mean, like the Abernathy Bridge, 250 million, and they can't even get it done. And it's going to be at a billion by the time it's done. They say 815 million in here, and I've driven by that thing. Those cranes have been in the air, you know, which feels like a decade at this point around that bridge. And they literally haven't built, expanded it. Like it just, the incompetency of them getting stuff done is just insane to me. And I think on just that alone, like the ability to actually just get something done. They had to build the Newport, the road to Newport. They had to build that twice because they screwed it up. Like this, the incompetency of these agencies is the part that just drives me crazy. Now, the only bright spot is that the acting director is Lisa Sumption, who's came from Parks and Rec, and she was former ODOT, so she knows what she's doing. Um,
I hear very good things about her. I hear a lot of competence,
yes,
which is encouraging.
she's great. I consider her a friend, but I hopefully that doesn't get her fired. That I just said that, but she's we worked a lot with her on Parks and Rec just because of the coast. We have a lot of parks over there, few trails. But she's got that, that is run pretty good, for having 900 employees and all this sort of things. But she's really stepping into a buzzsaw over there at ODOT, and it's a tough time to step into ODOT. I wish her well, but because I love transportation. I love building projects. I like seeing bridges go up. I think it's cool, and people want to drive in their cars. Like that's the thing is like you can't like I had to go to Redmond today. I went there for a lunch. I had to stop by Home Depot and pick up something on the way back. Like right, and then you go to the post office, and then you go to like you can't do that with mass transit. Like you can't force people to live their lives on a freaking bus or a TriMet. Like it's great if I got to go point A to point A. But if I have to go to point C that's anywhere off of that, I can't get there in any time. So I need to get in my car, right? And it just doesn't work. Or what if after work you got to go somewhere else? So the idea of all these mass transit mentalities are all driven based on you don't have a life and you show up and you're a factory worker in communist China. You do your job, you go home, you sit in your 300 square foot apartment and you play video games. Right. I mean, that's kind of what the mentality's been taught, but people don't live their lives that way, especially in Oregon, where most people now work. A lot of people work remotely. A lot of people work, throughout the region, wherever they are. I work throughout the state. You have to go all over the place, right? You got to take your
Well,
kids to do this and that and all the things. You can't do that with mass transit. You just can't. And so you have to build roads for cars because that is how we get around, and it will be how we get around. The future will be self-driving cars, but they'll still be in cars.
and everything that we buy comes basically via car or via truck, via road,
Yeah.
right? Like everything that we use. And so if you believe in an economy where you want to be able to buy what you want to buy when you want to buy it, gotta have roads.
Yeah. I believe in charging Amazon more for that sort of stuff. I believe in charging Walmart and Instacart and all those kind of things. Like they should be paying their fair share, Ubers and all those sort of things. That we should be taxing them more because they're using it more, right? I mean, I think they figured out the truck stuff, which is good. We should just go to a straight diesel tax for trucks and get rid of all this, stupid weight mile stuff. No show notes. But yeah, don't tell our friends that. But I think, but I believe that that's kind of how. But the reality is if we, and I don't think people would have a problem with any of that sort of stuff. If we were to actually build more capacity, if we were to
Yeah.
actually get bridges in the air that don't take 10 years, 10 years,
So
to
I
get things
use
done.
I use I-5 quite a bit, right? And I know this is west side of the state elitism, Brian, and you're central east side of the
I'm
state.
on I-5 a
But
lot too.
so there's a lot of places in I-5 where it's 2 lanes north, 2 lanes south. Okay. The biggest problem, and I think one of the things, and maybe the data doesn't bear this out, but you know what annoys the heck out of me is all of the trucks, the 18 wheelers and the Mack trucks trying to pass. That jams up the left lane so bad. So bad. And if they either had a dedicated lane or more places were 3 lanes or there was the far left lane was only cars, right? Only
Yeah.
passenger vehicles, like, oh my goodness, how much faster things would go. And but like it just drives me crazy. But obviously that's expensive and like I get all that, but ultimately we need it. The other thing too, Brian, I was just Googling because you were talking about Rose Quarter and how that was looking, and I was trying to figure out when it was originally built. I just saw this headline, KGW. I don't know if you were referencing this. ODOT floats the possibility of shelving the Rose Quarter project.
Yeah.
So that comes after the bill is signed, after the trucking association supported all of the changes.
Yeah.
I hope they knew that this was coming because let me tell you, if the trucking association did not know that this was being set up like this, they're gonna be pissed.
Yeah.
And frankly, like if they held on to this the point because I understand if like if the agency has to come forward and say this project isn't working or we need more money or whatever, like they're going to lay out the paths, but the fact that they put canceling on the table on a project that is in statute to be built is wild to me. We literally told them in law build this thing and they're like we're not going to build the thing, or at least we're thinking about not building the thing. Like that's crazy to me.
Isn't it?
And this is going to continue the dysfunctional situation. And so part of me, I understand like ODOT workers and needing to be able to fund transportation, needing roads to be plowed, right, but over the mountain, all that stuff. I get all that on the east side of the state. All of that is important. I understand. But the only reason I'm going to sign and collect signatures for the sales for the gas tax to stop it is because that will force an actual real negotiation conversation because it just totally destroys their budget without it. And it's very clear. Maybe we need to put different people in the room. We've already talked about that. Like, fix that stuff. Okay, that's fixable stuff, though. This is not like this is a bad direction for the state. It's the opposite of what we need. It's the opposite of what people want. But they're continuing with it, and the people who want Rose Quarter dead are the far left greenies who want us to live in the Stone Age. And it's just not. We can't allow them to control the conversation, control the narrative, control the direction of the state. So.
Not only do they want the Rose Quarter dead, they don't even want it to exist.
No,
Right?
they don't.
They're
That's right.
blow that up and make people use I-205 or 405 and not even go through the Rose Quarter, right? They don't want. They should return that. Now, granted, it's the
They don't
worst.
even want electric cars. They think electric cars are bad
Yeah,
because they're cars. They have to be
yeah.
electric buses.
Which is just so wild to me because the whole point of like everything was to make sure that people, they don't because of the environment they want to use a mass transit, but then they say, well, gasoline cars are bad, but now that Elon owns Tesla, now all of a sudden even cars are bad. Maybe it's even that. Like I don't even know. It's like there's this weird anti-car bias there that's just it's an oddity to me. That why are cars so bad? Like especially if we all had electric cars, isn't wouldn't that be then what would be the problem? Right? Asphalt's bad. Like it's not a porous surface that allows water to get to the ground. I don't know what's next, right? Tires are bad.
Yeah.
Like it's just it doesn't make any sense to me. So I think the idea that you just or it's just I think it's a philosophy that just goes towards this idea that we could all just ride in buses and cars and stuff, but you just can't in America. Like our country's big. It's like putting a bus system in Africa. It's big, it's kind of hard. It's just there's a lot of ground. We're not London. You
Just
know,
depends
it's
on what part of Africa, you know. Brian, so I have been trying, I have a business idea. I want to distribute and sell frozen water. And so I've been trying to open an ice facility in Newport, and nobody will take my call whatsoever. I say I'm trying to open an ice shop, and nobody wants to talk to me. And so I can't figure out why until I read the headlines. And apparently there's a lot of controversy, but it's not over frozen water, it's over immigration customs enforcement.
oh,
So
I
that
got
I
that
there's a
wrong.
disconnect there. I think just launching a frozen water business at this time is not going to work. I'm going to revisit that in the future. But obviously, there's been a lot. The coast kind of blew up. It seems like over the last week about a contractor that reached out for an unnamed federal agency to try to secure some space, and that's apparently set off some alarm bells, right? So I was thinking before we started I was looking at the headlines as I usually do to make sure I stay up on the news, and I spend a decent amount of time in Newport. I'm probably there at least once a month, or pretty close to it, and because my father-in-law, he has a boat, and so he'll rent a slip over there and
Nice.
go out, not at this time of year, but especially during the spring and the summer. And so down there, we always drive by Rogue Ales, and I've never been in, which is probably part of the problem because I drive by it and I've never been in. But they closed because they owe hundreds of thousands in rent and taxes. And this is obviously a building that's under private ownership. But now I'm thinking it's like, if ICE is perusing the headlines and wants a facility, there's one that's now available, and it's pretty good size. It looks like, and may also come with services like food, which may be necessary. I don't know.
And
But
beer.
anyway, I just had this thought.
Yeah, that whole thing has been pretty interesting on, that a rumor like that, just the hornet's nest of, boomer hippies that live in Newport that would love to show up and yell at Donald Trump. I mean, this is Newport has that group like right there when you come into Newport, the T's, and they have anti-Trump people that they're there every day. That's like Yahats in Newport. Like they're there every day protesting Donald Trump. So this just literally sends everything into a hornet's nest. But I think it's a bummer that Rogue shut down. I like that place right there. You go right over the bridge and go to it. But it would be a nice ice facility. I mean, it'd be great. I mean, I think that's gonna be. It's gonna be. I don't know why the Trump administration, unless they feel like because we don't have a nice detention facility in Oregon, and most states do, by the way. So we had right now all the stuff in Oregon, they're shipping them up to Washington, which I don't think anybody's protesting the Washington detention facility. I at least haven't seen it, but I just don't know if I'd go to Newport if I was the federal government. I think I would look at like south of Coos Bay but you'd think they'd go to like Klamath Falls because you got an air base there. You got, it seems like that would be a better location for an ICE detention facility. You probably have more of an electorate that would not be as, anti down there as well. And just seems like you got trains and everything going through Klamath Falls. So just from a logistics standpoint, it seems like you would be better off down there. But I don't know. I think the problem is every time Oregon kind of keeps popping up in the news with Donald Trump, like he hates to lose. So he'll keep poking because he can. And then it's just going to keep creating more and more issues and people will fire up over it and we'll see what happens. I don't think it'll actually come with anything. I don't think they really want that big of an issue. I don't think Newport makes a lot of sense for an ice facility because I think just getting people there, like, that road out there to Newport is not easy. It just doesn't make a lot of sense to me. So,
And I think basically you want it to be as far away as possible to bus in protesters from Portland
yeah,
too. So like obviously the ICE facility in Portland is the closest possible for protesters. So you want it to be like Pendleton on I-84, or you want it to be on 97, or you want it to be like
yeah, I think so.
Medford. I think like one of those makes more
Yeah.
sense to me. It's also has a closer, like you can do Idaho, Washington, California, Nevada, something from that to have a nexus with other places too. Easy to fly in and out of, maybe the Medford airport. I don't know. So yeah, I agree. Not necessarily a lot of sense, but if I get a finder's fee for putting this deal together for ICE, I'm okay with that. But
But we
Maybe it's
listen
not a
to the
binding
brewery.
contract.
I mean, the breweries must be closing. I know that people aren't drinking beer like they used to, and it really is gone down the. I just think that's if that is indicative of Rogue as a business closing down that facility. I'm really concerned about our beer industry. It employs a lot of people in our state. They really haven't struggling, because it's not like they're selling a bunch of non-alcoholic beer now. They're just not selling much beer in general.
Right.
And that's a problem for them, and it's a problem for because those are usually they do well when you have tourism and all that sort of stuff. So, but I don't think they're obviously not making enough to stay open. But that's kind of like every business in
That's it's
Oregon, right? I mean, what did we just read?
it's yeah.
Intel just laid off another.
I think Intel's problem, though, like I was thinking about this, I think you can make a lot of arguments that it's specific to the challenges of their business, and the fact that they really, because Nvidia is on fire. A lot of these other companies are massive. I think Intel has just unfortunately made some really bad strategy choices in the industry that they're in, and they're suffering for that. Doesn't mean they wouldn't have to lay people off with the current state of the economy, but I think it would be a lot less bad than it is. But we also just don't have like we're just not a place people want to invest. I keep seeing the headlines. They're kind of, I mean, it's a little esoteric, boring. There are other podcasts that cover the boring stuff better, but like the decline on the tax system and the lack of tax friendliness that makes businesses want to invest here is a problem. And it's a problem that has an effect pretty much over the entire state. There are some sectors that will continue to do better than others. It's mostly the tourism, the sectors that all benefit from tourism, the hospitality sector, and then I mean even healthcare is struggling. And now government. I mean, we've got these cuts coming at the legislature. We're going to hear all the agencies talk about their 2.5% and 5% cuts, and they're all going to, cry a lot about them. And this isn't even the beginning. I mean, it's like I can't even imagine. I think both co-chairs are probably like evaluating their life choices at this moment about whether they really want to be co-chairs going into the next budget or not.
Yeah.
And I would think long and hard about it because it's not that easy. And Ways and Means a lot less coveted of a spot in the legislature than it has been. If all you're doing is slashing, you probably don't necessarily want to be in that mode. If you're a new legislator, you might take a pass. But the
Yeah.
good news is, long term, if you plan to be here for 25 years, get in now because there's not a lot of competition. So you make some hard choices now, and then hopefully the economy turns around and you get to hand out money again, right?
You hope, but I mean, we haven't had cut budgets in a long time, so I think in starting with these agencies, and it's clear, I mean, I've scoured through all the general government ones, which are, Ledge Council, DAS, Contractors Board, Ethics Commission, things like that, right? So they're it's
The
kind
Legislative Equity Office was just sitting on general fund that they're going to give back. That's crazy.
of,
That's
yeah,
not good. If an agency is just sitting on general fund that they can return, it's called a general fund reversion, I think is what they call it.
yes.
Please look at the management of that agency because that's not okay. It's really not okay.
Yeah, and they have this like desire, I know within the agencies, or they've been told that they have to keep like a running funds balance of like 7 months or something of cash, which is just, it's kind of wild when you think about it. But a lot of them when they're given, go find cuts, well, just giving the money back that was allocated to you in the private previous session that you're just sitting on, that's not cutting anything. So that's not a it's that that's state taxpayer money that you didn't use that you're allocated to. It doesn't mean you get to just keep it in your bank account. You should be giving that stuff back and just say we don't need it. And the fact that we don't know that what their balance is until these things sort of come up is pretty horrible. So I think the other thing that I noticed in some of these too are like in the revenue office. I have a meeting with the director too, which is kind of funny. But one of their cuts is they're giving up space in the revenue building, so it's going to save them $1 million. And I'm like, well, we're not, the taxpayers aren't saving $1 million. Like the state owns the building. Like, so we're paying that to DAS. So that basically means you're not going to pay DAS. You're not going to do the debit back to the credit for your rent because it's not like you write a check back to DAS for your rent. They take it out of your budget, right?
Right.
So wouldn't so now DAS is losing the $1 million that you were going to pay that you were getting in the budget. So
That's right.
that's not saving anything. It doesn't make any sense to me whatsoever. And then
But
if
these
you
guys are all
didn't,
silos. They just have to protect their balance sheet. They just have to make theirs look good. Screw the other guys, right? I mean, that's the thing. That's part of it.
and then they said they're canceling an all staff in person conference. All staff in person conference. Reagan, you know what I call that?
That's a
Tuesday. It should be called Tuesday.
yes. Don't schedule Monday staff meeting. That's no good. Tuesday staff meeting.
But aren't they in the same building? They're
Well, they're
not
obviously
because they're
all
not
not.
working there. They all work from home.
America was built on the idea that anything is possible with hard work and a dream. But it doesn't seem to feel like that today in Oregon. Democrats' out-of-touch far-left agenda has only made things worse. Paying union workers to strike against us, stealing private property rights away, driving companies out of Oregon, and sending your taxes higher so you can't afford to live here. From gas tax, open-air drug markets, and homelessness, Democrats have failed. Democrats passed an additional gas tax on you. Oregonians will now pay over $4 billion more to failed Democrat agendas. It's time to push back, stand up, and say enough. Republicans think you should have a vote. Write this website down, notaxoregon.com. Get involved and stay ready. Governor Kotek and Democrats will do their best to make sure your voice does not count. Together, we can win and restore much-needed balance in Oregon against unchecked left-wing ideology of Portland Democrats the rest of us don't share.
That's correct. Yes. And I do think we need to talk about there is a lot of chatter about concern that agencies are not properly monitoring their folks working from home and that people are not putting in the hours and doing the same kind of work they would do in the office. Paramount just did this. The Paramount company got bought. And then they said everybody has to come in the office 5 days a week. And 600 people just quit. They didn't want to come into the office, which is fine. That's their right. That's totally fine. I don't, there's nothing wrong with that. I think if the state of Oregon, for all agencies with an office, which is all of the big ones, said 5 days a week in the office, we would shed at least 5%. And we would be totally fine. Some of those you might have to rehire a portion of them to make sure all the work is getting done and all that. But that's your 5% right there, I think. I think if everyone returned to the office, boom, your budget problem is solved from the people who quit the jobs who do not want to work in whatever the office is that they would need to work in. And again, nothing against those people. It's all just choices.
Yeah.
No, I'm not judging any of those choices, but I do think that would be a way to solve this problem.
Isn't that
And
what
Republicans should ask about that.
they should? Yeah. Hopefully they do. I'm certain some of them are listening to the podcast. Hey, Vicky, did you hear that? Okay. Yeah, she's got it. But I think one of the she said that's representative to me. One of the things that Elon did, remember when he bought Twitter, is he went to the headquarters of Twitter and there was nobody there. Nobody was working in the building, but yet they still had food service there every day. The cleaners would come in and clean offices that nobody's been in. And he so immediately said, you all have to come back to work. And they're like, what? I think half of the people quit or whatever. Plus Elon bought it, right? So they just quit. So I think you're right. I would literally just say, if I was governor or if I was literally running for governor, I would say, what's that? Because everybody says, oh, well, you're going to fire the director, fire, I would just say what you just said. No, actually, I will make sure every employee shows up Monday through Friday. They will be in butts and seats working for the people of Oregon. And then we'll find out if our agencies are efficient. We'll find out if our government's working for us. Because I'm going to see those people and know that they're actually doing the job for the Oregonians. And then if people quit, like you said, great. I'll just save me some money, and then we'll find, and just start there. But getting them to show up, and the fact that, and even in DAS's budget, because DAS owns all these buildings, right? Or they're not they own, the state owns, but they're kind of in charge of them. Uh,
Right.
and then they're saving by not doing deferred maintenance. And I kind of want to sit there and ask, like, okay, well, how many of these buildings? Why are we doing maintenance on buildings where nobody's at? What's the point of the buildings? Like,
Or
let's
why
just
are
do the
we or
building.
why are we building an OLCC warehouse on prime real estate? I mean, it's just again things that don't make sense that we do because one person or a couple people think this is a great idea. It's got to be people need to get where we're at. Okay, this is not the money flows freely from the federal government time anymore. So we need a change in mindset. So you can either change your mindset or we will find somebody who will manage to that reality. And
Yeah,
again, it's all about living in reality, right? Doesn't mean that the Oregon government's going to become hard right overnight. That's not what this is about. This is
yeah,
about managing to reality. And I believe that Governor Kotek says that she wants to manage to reality, and sometimes you can see evidence of it, like firing folks at the OLCC to try to, uncover corruption scandal. I don't know that she actually fired the right people or actually uncovered the scandal, because usually these scandals implicate members of their own party, which tends to be a problem for uncovering the criminals. But I think that's her stated goal. So if her stated goal is managed to reality, more of this needs to filter down and become part of the reality. But the basic problem is that you have a governor that's elected by public employee unions, and you have public employee unions who are protected usually by their contracts in a lot of ways to have all of these things that they can do that are benefits that a lot of workers in the private sector do not have. And they'll claim it's because their salaries are lower. I don't know that that's reality at this point, but we'll see. They get some pretty good colas. I get some pretty good colas because I'm one of them. I benefit from the same, but it's just like, let's get back to reality. Let's manage to reality. Let's hire people who live in reality. That's all that needs to happen. And Democrats would be massively popular, but they allow all this stuff to hang out, and so they have all these
yeah.
self-inflicted problems.
I think one of the bill ideas Senator Anderson and I were talking about with general government or these agencies is we're going to put in a bill. I don't have it all worked out, but basically a mandatory sweep of all agency cash every 6 months.
Oh, interesting.
And then it goes back. I would rather, and then it
They'll all cry bloody murder,
goes
probably.
back to the co-chairs to control that because it should go back to Ways and Means because that is the one committee that is duly elected by the citizens of Oregon to manage the cash of the state. And if agencies aren't spending, so if every 6 months there was a sweep, mandatory sweep, and if it's unfilled position, they have to come back to Ways and Means and to get that money back. I think you just take it.
Yeah, it's sort of a approach to do zero-based budgeting without doing a full zero-based budget,
Yeah.
which I do think makes a lot of sense. Zero-based doesn't always make sense in government
Well,
parlance.
priorities change, and clearly, if you haven't filled a position in
Yeah,
6 months, that's not a priority position for you to fill.
correct. Brian, last thing before we let the people go. Any important updates on the candidate front? I've not done a good job updating the candidate tracker. Hopefully, I'll get to it. Anybody crucial, anybody significant that we've missed updating the people on?
There really hasn't been a whole bunch, to be honest with you. It's been kind of boring on that front as far as like any candidate filings. Obviously, everybody's waiting to see what Dudley wants to do. It seems to be that's half of every conversation is about that. But there's been two other people that entered the governor's race. Brad Peters and Martin Ward, both Republicans. They'll go nowhere. Nobody cares. But then there
I'm
was
starting to think that the filing fee for statewide office is too low, Brian.
yeah, it does feel that way, doesn't it? Like for statewide, I think that's interesting. Darren Harbick refiled for his state rep district, so that means that he's not going to challenge Jamie Kate for the state.
Which I think we did.
We talked
We
about
had,
that,
yeah, I think we believed was the most likely outcome there.
and one of
And
the
I think,
most
honestly, that district benefits from all of that. I think the district benefits from having both of them, and that's positive. And I think that, like, long term, regardless of where anybody was at on any of these kinds of things, if you can get both, That's positive. And that doesn't mean he's not going to be a senator at some point. I think there's a pretty good chance he'll be a senator from that district in the near future too.
Yeah, I
So
agree. No, I'm happy to see it. I think it's good. It's we don't need more primaries. All it is, it's just wasted money, you know.
oh, and then Jake Pelroy, he's going to run for Lane County Commissioner, which is exciting. So Crosstabs really is the place to come if you're about to announce something exciting, but you're not going to
If
just yet.
you
So,
don't actually
right.
want to announce it on our program, yeah, we're great.
Correct. So if you're interested in switching parties or running for office but not ready to announce, feel free to come on Crosstabs and then do that immediately after your episode comes out.
Yeah, we haven't
I
tried. Javity did that to us too, didn't he?
He did. Oh, it kills
The
me.
next
So,
day.
which means
Big
we're
file.
very close to being a big show, Brian. We're very close. Not there yet, but we're very close to being the Meet the Press of Oregon
Yeah.
politics.
So, Chris Dudley, if you're looking to announce on Friday, come on our show on Thursday. That'd be
Right.
great. Yeah.
Yes.
We're more than welcome to have you. And then we'll talk about everything except for you actually filing for
And
governor.
we'll title the episode Chris Dudley is not running for governor, and it will be great. I love it. I think it's great.
Yeah, no big retirement announcements. I think we're still waiting for a few more people to see if they're actually going to run again. Kim Wallen filed again for state rep, so that's great.
So not retiring. I saw Rick Lewis is filed, not retiring. That's good.
Yep. Susan McLean filed, not
Oh
retired.
wow. I'm
Yeah,
a
so
little
I
surprised.
thought she was maybe on the fence, but I think she's coming back for another session. And then the most important one, though, Reagan, that I was on the fence about is Floyd Przansky has filed. So 4 more years of
I
3 days a week of judiciary.
Listen, here's the thing, and it's so hard because everybody in the building, I think, shares this perspective. That is a great and terrible thing. It is great that he is back, and it is terrible that he is back. And it's both of them.
Why is it great?
So I think there's a lot of folks that know that he understands. So, like, he understands the long perspective the issue sets, and there are times where he will line up on the correct side of an issue that is no longer the popular place to be. I can't think of it right now what it would be. Maybe, and we didn't get a chance to cover this yet. I guess I could do a couple more minutes. He lines up on the correct side of he's pro nepotism. He's fine with protecting the legislative side of nepotism. There's some other things that he does that he'll vote for that are right. And so, but yes, there are a handful of judiciary issues where he is not very good. And there's a lot of judiciary committee. But it's still, you also know you can deal with him. You also know you can talk to him. Like there's things about him that are not as
Yeah.
crazy far left. And you know you're getting a nut from that district as soon as he leaves too. That's the problem.
I think he's speaking of nepotism. We forgot to talk about Carlos.
That's right.
That's what we got to talk about. Otherwise, Carlos is going to get upset that we didn't mention his article. So, speaking of, because we are the NepoPod.
We are the NepoPod. Listen, so here's the thing. Basically, his headline says there's little oversight. Okay, that's his whole premise of his article is that people hire their
quietly
family
hire
members
their family members.
quietly. Again, what are we supposed to do? I hate this. I hate the quiet. They say Phil Knight quietly gives $1 million. What is he supposed to do? Is he supposed to call the Oregonian and tell them he's given $1 million? Is he supposed to send a press release? Again, I hate the adverb quietly because it makes an assumption that we're supposed to do something.
Yes.
And I don't. There is send a press release. I've hired my wife. Whatever. Fine. They're going to continue to do it. It continues to be dumb. The other piece of this, though, is that there's little supervision. Okay, the problem and the whole setup of this thing, and if you want to change this, I don't necessarily have a better system, but the whole point is the legislator is the hiring authority. Okay, that's the whole concept of the thing. So if there is an oversight, it means that the legislator isn't doing the oversight. Okay, now Carlos's article supposes that there is little oversight. I think the problem is that he is just not privy to the oversight for the most part. That taxpayers are not. I can't call up, but this is the thing. Is it's like as a taxpayer, I can't call up the Department of Transportation head and ask if all of his employees are working or ask about a specific employee. That's weird. And these guys are all assuming that all of the employees of the legislators should be able to prove what kind of work they're doing at what quality for how many hours or whatever. And they're making an assumption. All of these people are political appointees. They're exempt from the requirement at the executive branch to hire in a nonpartisan manner, which, by the way, also doesn't happen. They definitely hire in a partisan manner. It's incredibly clear they do. But our branch is exempt from that at the legislative. They can hire, these are partisan positions. You can hire a person that shares your ideology. You cannot hire a person that doesn't share your ideology. So all of the rules are already different. And you're presupposing that the legislators aren't doing the oversight. They are, you're just not privy to it. They're fine with the quality of work that they're getting. If their voters aren't fine with it, they can express that at the ballot box. But like, that goes more to what you think about the legislator than what you think about the people that they hired. And by the way, plenty of these legislators hire people who aren't family, who also suck at their jobs. So, and they never write that article. It's breaking news story from the Oregonian, government employees bad at their jobs. Like, stop it. Okay. I get what Carlos is trying to do. Every new person in Oregon politics writes this story. It gets written every cycle. Nothing will change because it doesn't need to change. The legislature is some legislators are trying to get a second L2 position. I think in the current budget environment, that is dead on arrival anyway.
Yep.
So we're stuck with what we've got in terms of capacity. If you're a legislator and you aren't happy with your capacity, fire your staff and get different staff. But like, stop complaining about the nepotism piece of it. That's not the problem. Just you have to be a better manager. I think some of it is these legislators don't know how to manage people. That could be it. I think that like training a legislator on how to manage an office and how to manage staff, because some of these guys are just activists and they've never managed anything more than their own clipboard. Like, that's the actual problem here. And but it's the nepotism attack is more interesting. It's like potentially more politically damaging, and so they just rather talk about that. Again, fine.
Sure.
I obviously have his opinions about this. I'm obviously biased about this, but like, that's my viewpoint on this. And I think Carlos misses a lot of that.
He does. I think that the angle that they were going, I guess I have a couple thoughts on it in regards to being a husband of a legislator, and I was her former chief of staff, now your job. But there's it's not as easy as you think being a chief of staff for your spouse. And so it can be as much as the representative thinks she's incredible, but there's a certain role in the building, and there's a certain role that being a representative is you represent a geographic area. So you're just because they were, and I think the flaw in his article was they weren't seen in the Capitol. Right. And I think that that's just not, and he used a couple of examples, and I just think that that's not a fair argument to make, because you're talking 6 months out of a 2-year time frame. So what if you are a spouse of somebody? Because even when I was Vicky's chief of staff, I couldn't go to Salem. I wasn't there all week like I am now. Our kids were younger. I had to make sure they got up and went to school and got the stuff, and then I would hop on my computer and do stuff in my office here, and then I was here, and then if I was lucky, I got to cruise over there maybe every couple of weeks for a day, to catch up on some things. But I'm watching Olus and doing all the things, so the oversight stuff of it really didn't really factor into me, because then after the 6 months is over, you have 18 months where you're doing whatever it is that you need to do at home, whether, to represent that community. And again, a lot of these people come from large districts, like Republicans, especially, where they like to focus on Republicans. And, like Vicky's old district, when I was her chief before redistricting, when she would go, it took her 3 days to get around her district, because she would have meetings and everything. So she'd drive to Lakeview, all the way over to Klamath Falls, then to Medford, and then work her way back up to Prineville. So you're talking huge districts on some of these things, and it's just not. And to have like oversight, well, if you're married to somebody, chances are you probably talk to them every day.
The other thing too is that the other thing he does not address at all is that most of the positions in management in state government are full-time positions, and all of the legislators who are the appointing authority and the managers are part-time. They're
Yeah.
all part-time legislators. Some have more space in their calendars to dedicate in the interim than others, but this is a part-time legislative position. So unless I'm going to go out there, I do have, by the way, because Vicky is a good boss, Representative Breeze Iverson is a good boss, and that's why I came to work for her. Don't work for bad bosses. You will have a bad experience. But unless I'm going to assume that I get to speak for that lawmaker when they don't have the ability to talk and respond to me or tell me that they're available or give me an answer on something, there might be some projects that just don't move forward or things that can't be accomplished until I can talk to that person. And if my manager is a part-time person and I need a response from my manager, there may be just some space where some things just don't get done. I have more latitude than some others, but like that is also an aspect of this he does not address whatsoever. They have part-time managers.
No, and I think it's because maybe there's a little bit, and I think the reason, well, I know why the editors and stuff at the Oregonian they want to write because it's always tilts more on the Republican side than the Democrat side. But some of the Democrats I know they have like five staffers that they all work like one day a week or something. It's like crazy. And there's really no oversight on that. There's some I have no idea, Reagan. If you ask me, I'm just randomly, who's Shannon Isidore's chief of staff? Zero idea.
I happen to know who that is
Okay,
because
you don't, but I have no. I mean,
she's an Albany city councilor. But you're right. Yes,
who's Travis Nelson's? Like, I don't know.
I don't.
I don't know if that's his cousin or his brother or his friend or I have no idea, and I don't care. Like it's not germane to to what you're trying to solve in the legislature with who you hire in your staff. When Vicky became the leader for the long session, when she was the leader of long session, it was not. And I went to work over in the Senate, right, with Tim for the rest of the long session. That's not as conducive to that environment. For me, it wasn't as conducive, so it wasn't as effective but in these little state rep little offices, it's not a big deal. You get one
Also,
employee that you can barely pay for, the whole year, and like Senator Anderson's budget is taken up by my salary. Like
you know what
I can't even
constantly
hire anybody.
happens? You know what constantly happens in the corporate world? You know what constantly happens in state government that doesn't get blocked by nepotism law is people hiring their friends, which happens all the freaking
Yeah.
time. But it doesn't get caught because, well, there's no family relationship. And so that's still a conflict of interest potentially. If you're going to argue that family, just by the virtue of being a family member, it's a conflict of interest, then hiring your friends is also a conflict of interest. And that happens like 1,200 times more
Yeah.
than the nepotism thing happens. And so, again, it's like,
Some of those people really suck
I,
at their jobs.
they're terrible at their jobs and they're constantly employed. And it's
Yeah.
just like, just look for competent people. And maybe the competent person that you trust, and trust is also a level of this. You have to have a person that you trust. And so if you do not trust very well, your family is going to be higher on that list than others. Some people can't trust their family, and that's unfortunate. And that's
Yeah.
or they don't have family that's close, whatever. That doesn't mean there wouldn't be more nepotism if other circumstances weren't different. Anyway, I think the perspective is, I'll say, limited. I understand that there's limits to what he has the ability to report on correctly, but I don't think it's as clean as the article makes it out to be. So that's
Yeah. Yeah,
done.
I think so. I think he was, I know where he's trying to go with it or what they were trying to go with it, but I don't
Sure.
think it's clear.
Yeah.
There's not really we're in politics is a messy business. We know that. And when you're in the business of politics, and we were talking about this earlier, the last thing on this point that I want to bring up is also to my legislator friends and their spouses or kids or anybody who's working for anybody, you can't be upset at this article because
No.
you entered the world of politics, which is a messy, it's knuckles, bloody knuckles kind of a business. You didn't go get a job at, Hewlett Packard with your husband, where they have, the HR and all that sort of stuff. Like, no, you entered the political arena. And
That's
so
right.
you're fair game. And if you took a job with your husband or your wife or whatever it is, you have entered the political arena. You are now part of the conversation. And if you get pissed at this article because your name's on there and you say, yeah, but I send emails to constituents and I use Dwayne's Yunker's email and I work in the evening, okay, then don't worry about it. You have nothing to worry about. Like the
But also,
reality is,
you
but
could
you
have
can't be
refuted
upset.
that and shared all that information with the journalist. And if you don't do that, that's on you. If you want to defend yourself, but you're not willing to defend yourself to the journalist, and then you get mad about the article they wrote, they can't print stuff you didn't say. And
Yeah.
so, like that, and you're totally right, too. Back to the point about these being political positions, they get covered it politically. And I've never, like,
It's just the
I'm
reality.
never yes, and that's my whole point too on the nepotism is I'm just trying to bring out the reality. I don't fault Carlos for writing the article. Again, there's probably stuff that I said that he can't really write because no one will really go on the record. I mean, I kind of just did, but
Yeah.
I'm not employed by my dad anymore. So now I can, right? I'm free to speak. But a lot of people just think ending nepotism is the solution. And I guarantee you there will be the same level of staffing incompetence in that building, whether the nepotism is allowed or not. And so, what I tell people is say nepotism isn't the problem. It's sometimes it's the management and sometimes it's the staff. And that's true in every workplace.
Yep.
And if you just deal with the incompetence, train them, fire them, replace them.
Some of the best
Not
staff
that hard.
some of the best staff I work with are, related to their boss, right? I mean, some of them are the best, and some of them are the worst too, by the way. I mean, to your whole point, it doesn't matter.
That's right.
Like what you do, you're still going to get there's good people and bad people, and the oversight is silly. Like if you go and Google or if they FOIA my calendar, I don't have a public my public calendar is my boss's public calendar.
Yep.
I don't have a calendar. Like it doesn't.
Which I did. I told Carlos that, so he may have put that in the article. I think he did.
Because
It's
he
in there
talks a lot
somewhere,
about
but
like other people's calendars and stuff, but I felt like that. I don't think it was in the article that he did. He mentions that we use their email and we use their calendar, but it wasn't pronounced as much as it should have been, and I think that's really was the issue. But we'll see. I mean, hopefully, we'll have another article in 2 years, Reagan, and then we can talk about it again on episode 198. Speaking of which, I gotta go talk ice. I think I gotta go freeze water and sell it to Eskimos. So let's get out of here.
talk to you later, Brian.
All right, see you.